IPA stands for India Pale Ale. This beer has carapils, pale malt, Karastan. The malt complexity in an IPA is again stronger, deeper, richer than both your Beaverton Blonde and your 3rd Street Wheat because of the amount of specialty malts that we've put in. It gives it more color, but it also increases the depth and richness of the beer. Okay, so this is a bigger beer. It's got more alcohol, more malt going into it. I would say in a batch of IPA, we're doing about 700 pounds, no, probably about 600 pounds of malt. In these two, you're probably looking at 300 pounds. Okay, so less malt, less alcohol, and lighter flavor, lighter components. Now we're going to go on to our flagship beer, which is the Red Thistle Ale. We've been brewing this beer since 1993. This is a recipe from John Eliason, our first brewer, and John Harris, which John Harris works at Full Sail Brewery. He's been a brewer forever in the Northwest. And John helped with the startup of Golden Valley back in 1993. Now you can see the color's changing darker here, and you're getting more red tones, more mahogany colors out of this. Again, this is because we're starting to get into a more complex blend of malts. So this, if you look here, is an actual ratio of the blend of malts for the Red Thistle. Crystal malt, pale malt, carapils, and roast or chocolate, right? And that's what's bringing out the red hues in this beer. This is a beautiful beer. This is what you would call an extra special bitter. Or in England, the beers that we have styled this after are a Fuller's ESB or a Watney's. And this beer is rich in malt components. It's got a beautiful, tight, rocky head, and it's not overly hopped. It's well balanced with the malt components so that you're given a really refreshing English-style bitter. It's a classic beer. For an American beer, it's similar to an Alaskan Amber or to a Bridgeport Blue Heron or Red Hook ESB. And now we're really getting into the dark, the dark malts, okay? So as we increase, it's not a lot, but as we move further down the malt scale, and our color ratio, sorry about that. Pretty big head on that guy. The color ratio grows darker, again, as we're using more chocolate. We're still not into the actual roast material here, but this chocolate malt brings out these deep, rich tones in the malt profile. And these are lightly hopped. In the Red Thistle, we're using Kent Goldings and Willamettes. These guys are Willamettes. They're Kent Goldings and Cascades in the IPA. Now, when we get to the porter, we're using basically Willamettes and Chinooks, okay? Alcohol level on both of these beers, the Red Thistle is about 4.4% alcohol, and the porter is about 4.8%. So again, your IPA is a little stronger at 5.2, but these are all in a moderate range, okay? When we go into our bigger IPAs, and again, go into the stout or the imperial stout, your alcohol content's gonna increase because we're using more malt, more sugar, more alcohol. Now let's talk about our last beer for your basic run of beers here is gonna be the Muddy Valley Stout. This is a nitrogen conditioned stout, more malt, but now we're getting in Ireland, they say on a great Guinness, you can float a 3-penny coin on top of the head. Now, we're not going to do that here, but you can see the richness that comes out of that head. It's so creamy, and that's complemented by the rich malt tones, okay? Surprisingly, you can see how concentrated, how intense these specialty malts are. This is the blend for the stout, the Muddy Valley Stout, and this is the blend for the Dundee Porter. Now, right here, you can see there's mostly pale ale, pale malt, and then some Karastan, and then chocolate roast, okay? So that's giving you a softer, lighter malt component in the porter, but you can see that it's still a big, black, rich beer. Now, Mark has designed this beer. He used to work at Deschutes, and he was there when they started designing Black Butte porters. This is your blend of stout, and you can see side by side, there's not a lot of dark roast material in there, but it's so rich, it turns all of that pale malt and some Karastan into a really black, rich stout, okay? We condition this one with nitrogen, as opposed to all the rest are done with CO2, carbon dioxide. This stout is more on the side of a Murphy's Irish Stout than a Guinness Stout. It's a little drier, but any great stout drinker will love this beer. It's perfectly brewed. Now, just in general on our beers, we try to produce traditional style beers. We focus on balance and complexity, not on overhopping the beers or really extreme styles. We want the classic beer lover from England or Germany to be able to come into the pub and enjoy any beer that we produce and say that's an excellent beer. These are all ales. The difference between ales and lagers, ale is a top fermenting yeast, and it ferments at a warmer temperature, taking less time, and produces more rich, complex malt tones. Ales are typically sweeter and richer and denser. Lagers, like Budweiser and Coors, are done with a lager yeast, bottom fermenting, colder temperature, and a much slower process. It takes 4 to 5 times as long to brew a lager as it does to brew an ale. Okay, so that's your lineup. I encourage you to try all these beers to know how they taste so that you can take that to the customer and explain the process, okay? So then we're gonna go in the brewery and talk about brewing.